Shalom everyone. Today we are going to look at the fourth word, remember. The Shabbat as a covenant loyalty and not a religious obligation. The weekly declaration that God is enough. Today is day 25 of the Omer. Of all the 10 words, the Shabbat command is the longest. God spends more words on this one than on any other. More than murder, more than adultery, more than idolatry. He does not just say rest on the seventh day. He explains why. He describes what. He names who it applies to you, your household, your servants, your animals, even the foreigner within your gates. And then he anchors it to creation itself. Because in 6 days God made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested. The Shabbat is not a Jewish tradition or a religious rule. It is built into the architecture of reality. It is the rhythm God himself modeled and then embedded into the covenant with his people. Exodus chapter 20 verse 8 to 10. Remember the Shabbat day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Shabbat to the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, not you, nor your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, your cattle, nor the outsider that is within your gates. Mark chapter 2 verse 27. Then Yeshua said to them, Shabbat was made for man, and not man for Shabbat. In this verse of scripture, Yeshua reframes rest as a gift, not burden. It was created to provide rest for the people to restore and bless, not a harsh requirement. Think of it this way. The most generous employer you could ever have looks at the week you have just worked, every demand, every pressure, every ounce of energy you poured out, and says, take a day off. Not because the work is not important, because you are more important than the work. That is the heartbeat behind the Shabbat. God looks at human beings working and striving and says, 6 days is enough. The seventh day is yours, not to produce, not to perform, just to rest, to breathe, and to be with me. It is less a rule and more of an invitation, a standing weekly personal appointment with the one who made you, to be filled back up with everything the week poured out. Hebrews chapter 4 verse 9. So then there remains a Shabbat rest for the people of God. This verse is indicative of a continuous rest available for all believers in Yeshua, the ultimate eternal rest to come in his kingdom. In Exodus, the command begins with Zakor, meaning remember. In Deuteronomy, the same command begins with Shamor, meaning to guard or observe. The rabbis teach that God spoke both words simultaneously, that remembering and guarding are two sides of the same act of Shabbat keeping. You remember what God has done, and you guard the space for that remembering to happen. The Shabbat is not just rest from work. It is active, intentional protection of your relationship with God from the relentless demand of everything else. Notice the first word of the command, remember. Not observe, not keep, but remember. Because God knew that of all the things his people would forget, of all the truths that would erode under the pressures of daily life and demands of survival, the first to go would be this. They are not machines, that they are made far more than productivity, that their worth is not about their output, and that God provides for the day they rest. Every week, the Shabbat is a line drawn in the sand of your schedule that says, this day belongs to God. And everything that presses against that line is telling you exactly what you allowed to become more important than him. So, did you remember the Shabbat last week? If not, let's try to build the Shabbat into this week. Choose the upcoming Saturday. And if you can't, Decide right now which day this week will be your Shabbat, apart from Sunday, because that is your fellowship gathering in the presence of God. Choose a day as your personal time out with God, your protected, non-negotiable day of ceasing, and put it on your calendar. If you already have a Shabbat practice, ask honestly, is it genuine rest or just a lighter version of a regular day? Guard it this week with more intentionality than you have before. On your Shabbat this week, before anything else, spend 10 minutes writing down 5 specific things God has done for you in the past week. Not a general gratitude, specific acts of His faithfulness in your specific life. This is Zakor, the remembering that the Shabbat is designed to protect. Identify one thing that most consistently invades your rest. Work, email, phone, the project you keep thinking about. Physically remove it from your Shabbat space this week. Shamor, guard the boundary. Rest is not what is left when everything else is finished. Rest is what you protect before everything else begins. God spent more words on this command than on any other. That is not an accident. Remember and guard your relationship with God. We are 25 days to Pentecost. See you tomorrow.